Good day. I have a brief video presentation on cooperatives. The actual title is Cooperatives-A Force to Transform Firms in the Informal Sector to Firms in the Formal Sector. My target audience are my peer reviewers, policymakers, and informal actors. There are three objectives for this presentation: to provide definitions for formal and informal sectors in an economy, to provide definitions for cooperatives as a social force to transform firms in the informal sector into firms in the formal sector, and thirdly, to briefly explain the characteristics of cooperatives that make them the social force to effect the transformation from informality into formality in the growth development dynamic, particularly in developing countries. So what are the definitions for formal and informal sectors? Well, according to Wikipedia, formal sector refers to activities which are taxed and monitored by the government, and the activities involved are included in the gross domestic product of a country, the GDP. In contrast, the informal sector is not taxed and it's not regulated by the government, and its output is not included in the GDP or the GNP. So what is the definition of cooperatives? According to the Business Dictionary, the definition of cooperatives are firms that are owned, controlled, and operated by a group of users for their own benefit. Each member contributes equity capital and shares in the control of the firm on the basis of one member, one vote principle, and not in proportion to the capital invested. Already, before I get into the characteristics of cooperatives that make them this dynamic force to transform informal firms into formal firms in an economy, I should point out that already cooperatives are very entrenched in many economies. In the United States, for example, there are over 30,000 cooperatives in virtually all sectors of the economy: transport, education, health, you name it. And the market value of these cooperatives in the US is well over $3 trillion. And an estimate I saw states that the annual revenue of cooperatives in the US is over $600 billion annually. So what are the characteristics of cooperatives that make them such a dynamic force to transform informal firms into formal firms? Well, there are many. Time will not allow me to get into all that I have, but one of them is that the cooperatives are uniquely positioned to help in this transformation from informality to formality because they pool their resources, and their number one focus is on the needs of their members, the owners of the cooperative. So they put the needs of their members before making profits and before trying to maximize market shares. So the welfare of their members is critical to them. So that's one reason, one characteristic. Another is that they're well suited to tackle poverty, therefore, and low income, low productivity of the small business people who are typically the ones in the informal sector, because they collectivize their resources and production and marketing and so forth. And as I said, the needs of their members is a critical driving force for them. So they have a vested interest to upgrade the skills of their members, to ensure that their members have healthcare, housing, etc. Because profit is not the number one motive, though important, for their survival. And so I believe that this is another characteristic that enables them to to make an important impact in the transformation of informal firms, whether small farms or small manufacturing enterprises, into the formal sector. Cooperatives also play an excellent role in the inclusion of people because of the very nature of a cooperative. It's commonly owned by different members and no one dominates. Everybody pools their resources for the common good, so to speak. And so, in that regard, I believe that cooperatives can also play an important role in developing the human capital skills, training, managerial skills, and so on, literacy programs for its members, and even other members of the community, so that they can improve rather the productivity levels of the members. In fact, research shows that cooperatives typically pay above the market wage in any sector in which they operate, as a general rule. Cooperatives also are very inclusive and they are run in a pretty democratic way, so that the voices of all the members can be heard and can have an impact in propelling the cooperative to address the problems of poverty, low income, etc. And so, for all these reasons, I believe that cooperatives can play a very important role in transforming firms in the so-called informal sector into the formal sector. So, thank you very much. I am pretty much out of time. I have a lot more to say, but as I said, I'm out of time. Thank you.